What's going on, good people? Rich here.
Ray P here.
Shout out to school. He's sitting this one out this week. I'm laughing because I probably know why. We're gonna have a conversation here. But we have a very special guest. Shout out to Brian, friend of the podcast officially. This is his third episode with us.
So third makes me a friend. The first two,
nah, you officially like, you like Culture Garden family. Like you like the cousin.
All right.
You know what I mean? You like the cousin, of course.
Perfect.
House party. No Country for Old Men, and here we are for Drumline. So shout out to everybody. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode. We appreciate you like always. Please remember to subscribe, share, rate, review, the whole nine. We appreciate all the feedback that we get. Don't forget, we do have the Black Panther Wakanda Forever ticket giveaway. So we will be giving out 2 tickets. It comes out November 11th, so a week from this upcoming Friday. We will be doing the drawing next Wednesday when we record. So rate us on Apple Podcast. Leave us a comment on YouTube. Shout us out, or not shout us out, but hit us up on Instagram. The Culture Garden Podcast is our handle, the Culture Garden Podcast. Reach out, let us know that you did it so we can make sure we put your name in the entry, and we'll reach out to everybody or whoever wins once we do the drawing. So just a way for us to give back to you for, rocking with us so hard.
What about our Spotify listeners?
Spotify listeners, yes.
Doesn't care about them.
Yeah. Do Spotify have comments? Can you comment or rate?
I believe so.
All right, Spotify, the same thing. My bad. Yeah, Spotify don't feel excluded. If you have SoundCloud or listen to it somewhere else that doesn't have a rating system, just hit us up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Give us a comment. Let us know what you think about a certain episode or one that's been your favorite. Speaking of, I think we don't have to put our back episodes on YouTube. I know we don't have any visuals for them, but if people listen to it, with the audio on YouTube, then just put up a space for it. Because there's a lot of episodes that we've done that if you've only, met us through YouTube, been familiar with us through YouTube, you wouldn't know about them. Like I said, House Party. So we got a lot of episodes we need to put up. But here we are, episode 26, Drumline. Brian, I'm going to start with you because we had the same conversation at House Party. I asked you straight up, why House Party? And here we are again, because Drumline, I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting it at all. And what made you want to say, I need to discuss Drumline with y'all?
So, I don't know now. No, I don't want to say it's complicated, but this came out in what, 03? So
in 02, December 02.
In 02, okay. So I saw it in 03 when it came out in DVD. So I was just off my freshman year at Toledo. Let's say I was on academic probation. I was sitting a year out after my first freshman year. So I was, back home. We have a college locally here called Baldwin Wallace. It's in Berea. It's close to where we live. My best friend was going there. So I was always hanging out there. He was who I saw this with. I texted him last night. This is Nate, Kyron. You know Nate well.
Yeah, of course. Shout out to Nate.
Texted him last night. I was like, hey, man, what prompted you to buy Drumline? You bought Drumline on DVD. Why? And of course he said, because Nick Cannon's hilarious. And Dave Chappelle didn't teach us that until later that year. I was like, that's not the right excuse. You can't use that. So he goes, this is coming straight from him. He goes, I think it was because I had so much money on my meal plan. I was able to use it at the bookstore, and I would just buy any DVD or CD that I was remotely interested in. I tried to order Bum Fights once, and the lady that worked there told me no.
I forgot about Bum Fights.
So that's the how. First time I saw it. Me, him, and his girlfriend probably just put the DVD in once and watched it. I liked it at the time. There's a lot of good scenes in this movie, and I think we'll get deeper into this here in a couple of minutes. This movie has good scenes, and I can't stress that enough. And it's something that watching it last night, I don't think I've watched it start to finish in a lot of years.
Yep.
It's a great, this scene's coming up. I'm going to sit and watch this 10-minute stretch. This scene's coming up. I'm going to finish out the movie, watch the last 20 minutes. It's a great scene movie. Maybe not the best start to finish.
Okay.
Brian, I am going to agree with you. I can't remember because I know Rich will ask. I don't even remember the first time I saw Drumline.
Same.
So 2002,
That's our freshman year. We wrapping up
freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
Oh
You know?
man. Old man in the room.
But I don't remember. Maybe I saw it in the theaters. Maybe I saw it on DVD. I don't know. And I remember it being a good movie. And Brian, to your point, all the times it's been on TV since then, sit and watch bits and pieces of it, remembering, oh, this was a good part. This was a good part. This is coming up. But man, I was so bored trying to sit and watch to prepare for this. I was like, oh my
This movie is
God.
2 hours
It's
long.
2 hours long. This is too fucking long. What the
Wait,
hell?
that's ridiculous. 2 hours.
This movie is the same length as No Country for Old Men.
Crazy.
I don't know what they were.
I don't
know what they were thinking making this 2 hours.
So I bought the special edition on iTunes. No big deal. I don't like to brag, but I bought the special edition of it. And I got really mad when I realized it was on Disney Plus. But the special edition is, I think, 2 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you where those 2 minutes went.
I got you. Those 2 minutes are in the scene after Devin made the drum line and he's talking to Layla and they're walking. She says, I have a car. There's a little small section where he's driving her car in the parking lot.
I have that as something that bothered me about the movie, but keep going.
And then there's a couple other extended scenes when they're doing some band rehearsal stuff, but that's pretty much it. But before we go further with this movie, let's get into the stats of it. Let's get into a little bit of background, and then we'll roll it. We'll continue this conversation of when we get to classic or not. All right. So it was released December 13th, 2002, as we just discussed. Directed by Charles Stone III, who was also directed some episodes of Blackish, Mr. 3000, and Paid in Full. So it's kind of funny seeing somebody who directed Paid in Full and then direct Drumline. Just two different ends of the spectrum. And amongst other things, he is known for the West Side Budweiser commercials. There's a lot of people out there who don't understand what I just did. Have no idea what just happened. It's cool. YouTube it. It was a big deal back in the late 90s, early 2000s? Probably late 90s.
Yeah, late 90s.
Like at one point, that's how everybody answered the phone. Like, what's that? Anyway. The story
just
was
Google it. YouTube it. You'll figure it out. It's probably not going to be funny. It really wasn't that funny then, but
it's just a nostalgic thing, which we'll talk about again. Story about Sean Sheps and he and Tina Gordon, who we talked about last week, a couple weeks ago in one of our episodes. She did The Peoples. They wrote the screenplay for this film, had a budget of an estimated $20 million and made just over $57.5 million worldwide. And as Brian mentioned, you do not have to buy the special edition or the standard edition on iTunes. You can currently catch it on Disney Plus, where it's streaming. Did not win any awards. I don't know if anybody saw this. Rachel Chase. I don't know if anybody saw this, but there was I don't know how true this is, but I was reading something in research where fans were upset once this movie released that Nick Cannon wasn't nominated for an Oscar.
No, the fuck.
I saw it, and there's no way it's real.
This can't be real. It can't be real.
There's no way.
There's no way. There's no way it can be real. But I just wanted to point that out because it was interesting. We'll get into the cast real quick. We have Nick Cannon as Devin Miles. Lee Thompson-Young was the second choice. It came back between Nick Cannon and Lee Thompson-Young. For all of you.
Jet Jackson.
And it's Jet Jackson, which I was a big fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was between those two, which makes sense because the more I watch this, and it's on Disney Plus, like Drumline's a Disney movie.
Yes.
It's a Disney movie. Like it really is.
Yeah, Fox 2000 is a Disney. Yeah, at the time it wasn't, but yeah, it's a Disney subsidiary. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. You could have told me that. You could have slapped Disney on there. It's like a Remember the Titans almost, except for drums or sports. If Remember the Titans was present day instead of the 60s, it kind of probably would have been the same movies.
You got Petey from Remember the Titans in the movie.
Yeah.
And Blue.
Yep, Blue.
And the the school president, he is
Oh,
Wood Harris's father in Remember the
yeah,
Titans.
Oh
that's
my
right.
gosh.
Damn, that's
Uh,
kind of weird now.
yeah.
Now when I think
I
about
also
it.
read T.I. was up for the role of Devin too.
Yep, T.I. was also considered. He was like the
Hell
third
no.
choice. I know that would have been nuts. We have Zoe Saldana as Layla, and I think this is the first time I saw her.
She was in Center Stage. You may not have seen that. It is a dance movie.
No, I have not seen it.
Brian, I used to be an avid dancer in my youth.
Okay.
And so I was obsessed with it. That was like 2000. So 2 years before that. That's actually one of my random facts, like Zoe, aka Layla, being the dance captain of the Majorettes made sense because we just saw her with the major role in Center Stage. Well, I saw her in Center Stage.
Nice.
Now, there's no we there, but we get it.
Me.
You might have to check out Center Stage. Do you know
It's
who it
so
was?
good.
You know who almost got the role?
Who?
Kerry Washington. 2002 Kerry Washington.
2002 Kerry Washington after Save the Last Dance. I could see it.
I'm good with Zoe. There was a certain southern prissy charm she brought to the role.
Okay, yeah.
That I believed. No?
Disagree.
Disagree? I'm curious about how what did you think about
maybe I don't like Zoe Saldana.
I think that was gonna be it. I was like, that might be one of the people on your not like list. And I get it. I can get it. There's a couple things knowing. Yeah, I get it.
Okay, let me do it like this. This is not a Center Stage pod. She did well. I bought her tough New Yorker, Latinx, Afro Latina role in that movie. I bought it. And I think maybe it's because I know that Zoe doesn't really identify herself as a Black woman. So every time she portrays herself as just that, it doesn't quite curl all the way over for me. Because I thought the same thing watching Netflix's From Scratch.
No, that's funny because if there was a reason, I think that is the reason. Because in real life, it's not like that. Even some of the research I did, I found like an oral history of the film that got kind of everybody together. And just the way she talked about it, like just she didn't refer to a lot of people in the cast were referring to it as, I was excited that it got into the HBCU culture and the whole nine. And she was just like, I thought it was cool that we went into a side of American culture that's not discussed enough. And it's just certain way you say things, and
because
it's just
cultural nuances matter.
Yeah, small nuances.
The same thing about Queen of Slim. Cultural
Yeah,
nuances matter.
Yeah, and I'm a Zoe fan, so it just is what it is. But it is, I don't know. Sometimes when there's certain people in certain roles that you really liked, and it's like, dang man, like you was really acting.
I mean, look what she did to Nina Simone. Come on, guys.
Orlando Jones is Dr. Lee.
Legend.
Shout out to Orlando Jones. I think he is a shining moment in every scene he's in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love the fact that he got to show some acting chops. Go ahead, Brian.
Who is he to you guys? Like you see Orlando Jones, what's the first role?
Makes 7 Up yours.
7 Up guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a 7 Up guy. And I know he did like Bikers Boys and the movie with Eddie Griffin. I can't think of the name right now.
Undercover Brother?
No, not that movie. School would probably be going crazy if he was here. He's probably watching this right now going nuts, like yelling the name of the movie out. Double Take, maybe?
Double Take.
Okay, then got you. But yeah, definitely the 7 Up guy, without question. That's what he's known. That's what I knew him as.
He's in the Replacements too, isn't he?
Absolutely, that too. Yeah. That's probably the second thing.
Yeah, I'd say those two. Yep.
Yeah, but I just can't say enough good things about Orlando Jones in this film. Like I loved every scene he was in. I believed him in his role. He really brought it, and he had a couple. The corny lines that I disliked in this movie came from him. Whatever beef you have, you better grill it up and eat it. Like it was cool back in 2002, but now listening to it, I like grimace every time.
But that just felt like old man talk to me.
Beavis and Blackhead, like
That's one of my favorite quotes.
Corny, like it's corny. I don't know.
But you have to think 2002, Beavis and Butthead was still on TV.
You're right. You're right.
So it's a cultural reference to that time, 20 years ago.
Yeah, we got Leonard Roberts and Sean Taylor. Charles Stone wanted, who was the director, he wanted Khalil Khan, who everybody knows throughout the culture as Raheem. From Juice. Obviously, he was in Love Jones a little bit, but studio wanted Sean, and they weren't going. They weren't budging, and they really had a big fight about it. Went back and forth to the point where Charles just said, "Forget it, just cast him." And I don't know what the background of the reasoning was, but he just felt that Khalil just would have played that role a little better.
I mean, he had just come off the Temptations movie.
Right. Jason Weaver is Ernest, legend. We've talked about him in the ATL episode. Yeah. Earl Portier is Charles. We just mentioned he was in Remember the Titans. Candace Carey is Deidre. That role almost went to Debrat. We have J. Anthony Brown as Mr. Wade, and Omar J. Dorsey as James the bus driver. And the only reason I want to shout him out is because Raising Kanan just ended. And all the years I've watched Drumline, I never realized that was, or all the times I was watching Raising Kanan, it wasn't until I went back to do research for Drumline and I realized that was Cartier. I'm like, that was Cartier, because I say his quote all the time.
See, I was going to reference him to Queen Sugar on OWN.
Yeah, I'm about to say, not a lot of people reference Queen Sugar, but just the fact that he was in this movie, and I say that BET Classic line so much, I'm like, oh snap, that's Cartier.
You forgot to mention GQ, who played Jason.
Yeah, shout out to GQ. I did forget Jason. Yeah, shout out to GQ. It was Jason.
It took me, I'm not kidding you, I stared at his IMDb for like 15 minutes upon realizing his name was GQ. And I was like, there has to be something wrong here. Like, there's no way this dude's name is actually GQ.
Yeah, it's GQ, man. It's we'll talk about it, his character and how he came about. It's pretty interesting. But let's revert back to that conversation about whether it's a good movie or not. So, classic or not, Rachel, is this a classic?
Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but it isn't.
So let me help you out before you go on.
It's culturally relevant, but is it a classic? No.
Let me help you out a little bit before we go on. I think we need to make a distinction between classics and like Hall of Famers. Because there might be a few that are like some classics, but they ain't like up there. We've done some Hall of Fame movies, and like you said, is it a classic? It's a classic to us. And a lot of that is nostalgia. Nostalgia is dangerous.
Yeah.
At school likes to tell me all the time. And keep going.
I don't know. I don't think that it is. And I don't even want to say that it didn't hold up well, because again, there are still parts that are good, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. But my question is now, at 35, if I was a 35-year-old watching this in 2002, would I feel how I feel now opposed to how I felt then watching the movie? You know what I'm saying? So like, absolutely. It's good, but it's got some plot holes. It's not it's not that great. Like, it's got some continuity issues that don't quite make sense, and some are just personal little pet peeves of mine, just as far as my personality goes. But man, it's a decent movie for a high school freshman, a college freshman. Like, oh yeah, you're in college, you're in school, this is good. But as like an adult, a real adult, it's like, I'm gonna skip past this.
I think that's a great point, is you have to frame it. So many movies are framed with when you first see it. Mm-hmm. And it's how you think of it for the rest of your life. So it's like you always go back then to that point. To kind of go back to the house party, pod, this like house party, it gave me a glimpse into something I wasn't used to seeing, right? It gave me a glimpse into something else that was different. Obviously, I'd spent a year at Toledo, so I, wasn't as I don't want to say blind to things as I was like when I was, 10 and saw House Party for the first time. I had seen more, but, still wasn't used to seeing this. This isn't, something you see every day for me, so there's that. And then, as far as classic Hall of Fame, it's definitely the best HBCU marching band movie ever made, I would say. That was a joke. I think it's the only one.
I can't think of any other.
Maybe the second one.
But yeah, like, I can't stress enough. It's got great scenes. It has, it has 3 or 4 parts where I'll stick in and watch, but like start to finish, it's a long 2 hours.
Yes, it's a very long 2 hours.
So, Rachel, you said it the best. It's culturally relevant and it means a lot. I don't think that makes it a classic. And I know there are people, I'm not going to be upset with people out there who say it is. Like, that's kind of, it walks that line of it, because I know how much it means if you're from a certain era. Rachel, I had the same exact thought as you. Like, if I was just seeing Drumline for the first time, would I still enjoy this movie the same way I can enjoy a Best Man or 5 Heartbeats, movies that we consider classics?
Right.
And obviously there are different moments and different times, but I think it hit its, for what it was and what it was trying to do, I think it hit its target audience.
Yeah.
I do think that you can show this movie to 13 to 18-year-olds right now, and they will appreciate it and love it and enjoy it. I think that it does have a lasting legacy, but once you get out of that, it's not a movie you revisit, just kind of like you guys said. Like, Brian, you sent me a text, if it was yesterday or this morning, you said we have to talk about if this is a good movie or not.
Yeah, because it's tough. Like, I think we've talked about it. There's parts that are kind of bad. Devin as a character is kind of all over the place.
Hate him.
He's super hateable. But when you think about it, I'm going to completely contradict myself. He is an 18-year-old kid in this.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be a whiny bitch at times.
Yeah.
He's going to be cocky. He's going to be whiny again and throw temper tantrums. Like, he's all over the map. And like, that was my thought last night, was like, God, he's a hateable character.
Very much.
And then like, I was thinking about it today throughout the day, and I was like, man, maybe he's just like an 18-year-old.
Got you. That's fair.
Man, Brian, that is such a good point. And this is something that I have realized about myself, because I'm looking at my notes and I have written several times, like, I cannot stand Devin. But I also don't really like young people. So maybe maybe this is the materialization of that, like my disdain for him. Like, young people are a nerve in me. Like Devin, they think they know everything, and you know literally nothing. You can't even read music.
Let me ask you both this, because I think one of the things about Drumline that pushes it over the hump for a lot of people is that it's about Drumline. It's about a band. It's about something that we don't normally get a movie on. And if this same movie,
hold on, Tyron, does that band? How mmany sounds does that one band have?
One band. One sound.
It's just one sound. Okay, I wasn't sure.
If this film, if you take the same exact, because it's a sport movie, it's a sports movie, except for the sport is drums or band. If you make this about basketball, I don't think anybody would blink twice about trying to watch this movie again. I think the drums really saved this film. Like, I don't like the plot to the point where I would even, because if this was about another sport, I don't even think I'd be considered. I might even say, like, I don't want to do this movie because of the plot lines.
So,
the drums make it unique enough to where I want to keep coming back.
And is that, I think it's what hits me is it's because I was never in band, and up until that age had no interest in it. And this movie was like, oh, they actually do some pretty cool shit. Like, these guys are super talented. It's not like, these nerds in high school that like I would have thought of. Like, these are like, oh, these dudes are like actually pretty talented when you get like to that level.
So go ahead. My fault, Rachel.
No, I was gonna say, I think to your point, that's a very interesting dynamic, because it's a peek into HBCU band life because, shout out to the Rockets, but they weren't doing formations like that. They weren't playing, you know.
Well, I mean, either was Morris Brown at the Classic, but we'll get into that.
but then there's that. So you got to see something that was different. You weren't thinking of the typical or the stereotypical quote unquote band
Mhm.
geek. You're looking at people who are kind of cool, like, oh, they're not like lames, they're not geeky, they just are really good at instrumentation
Yeah.
and straight lines. Um, and I really like that. I had been to Circle City Classic and all of these classic games and had an interest in that band life, not my Catholic school band life. So it just was different. So I was happy to see that. And I think now us doing Drumline is interesting as we again sort of see HBCUs on the main stage. They just had college game day at Jackson State. Shout out to Deion Sanders.
Prime.
So again, we're highlighting things that matter. But I don't want to see this movie at 35.
So you both just kind of transitioned perfectly into a little bit of background about this film and what it was supposed to be. Before he got into some different hands. You talked about like you not wanting to relate to your Catholic school band. Brian, you said then the geeks in the band, whatever you said it as, but it was inspired by Dallas Austin. And wasn't he inspiring ATL too?
Yeah, he produced both.
Okay, then got you.
And he said that he did this like in part in honor of Kim Porter, who he dated.
Oh, really? Okay, then I didn't know that. But the origin story, Devin's origin story was pretty much Dallas Austin High School. Like he was at Columbus High School. He was a talented, like standout freshman drummer. He had a section leader that pushed back. He hazed him, exposed him for not being able to read music. So all of that pretty much came from his real life. He pitched the film to Fox in the early '90s, and they said the same thing, kind of like, who wants to see a movie about marching bands? Like that's not, the vision wasn't there yet. It wasn't even about HBCUs at that point. It was about a high school band. Like, let's make this movie about this high school band. And it was like, we don't want to do that. And then he ended up showing them some footage of like the like not a BET classic, but something similar at the Georgia Dome. It was a high school battle of the bands. And then they said, all right, cool. And then it took about 8 to 10 years to actually get started to go. And the original story, like I said, had that a character like Devin coming to the white suburban school to give him some, some bring it on type of vibes or whatever you want to call it. And they were like, nah, we're not making this movie. And he couldn't read music. So they was like the racial implications and all that. Like, we're not about to do this. And then it was somebody's idea to say, let's move it to an HBCU. Like, let's see what it's like for an HBCU. And they shout out to FAMU. Shout out to Big Sis. The Marching 100, which their reputation precedes them at FAMU. She told me, I asked her, like, hey, tell me about band culture at HBCUs, at FAMU. How was it? And she was just like, we leave the game at halftime. Like, once halftime's over, like, we all leave the stands. We go and talking about what we're doing next. Like, the band has more juice than the athletes. And that's a real thing. And it was hard for me to kind of understand it. She said, just flip the roles. Like, this is the quarterback. Like, these are the people. Like, if you in the band, you somebody around there. And she said, it's like, they went through hazing and, other instances and things like that they show throughout the movie, because it was like, they going through all this. And she was like, no, that's a real thing. They go through like boot camp and training and hazing and big brother this and big brother that.
It's funny because one of my notes is just, man, is this band this serious? And you just answered that question, right?
Like, it is.
It's just when you're outside of it, you have no idea. But like, yeah, like it's real.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we talked about Jason GQ, that character. Fox stepped in at one point and just said, "Hey,
doesn't sound like the Fox I know."
Right. They needed some more money. They needed some more money to film like certain scenes the way that Charles wanted to film them and make it look right. And Fox was pretty much like, "Hey, we ain't gonna lie to you, man. Y'all need like a white character in the band. Like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but this is turning into a black movie, and we need some more white people in it. And as I said, how many? And Charles had the great response, like, how many white people they want? Like, is there a quota? Like, you want 2? You want 3? And they ended up finding somebody at Morris Brown. They went to an actual Morris Brown practice, found this white guy, redhead, and just like, what's your story? Like, why are you here? And he was just like, I grew up down the street, sort of like Jason's character. I heard this band my whole life, and I wanted to play in it. So that was a real thing. Like, things like that happen when they just like, I know these are HBCUs, but I've had a dream of this for so long that I'm going to go ahead and pursue it. So it was just funny that the studio was, that part is dope. The funny that the studio was just like, we need to make this more commercial.
That was the thing.
That makes sense. Go ahead, Brian.
My question was like, I don't think I've ever asked this, and it's never been asked in a movie, but like, my question was like, too many white people in this movie? Like, just based on everything, like just having him in there, it's like you could tell that it was like that it was a studio call, right?
Yeah.
Like,
even though it's not uncommon for
white I know, but still,
it is definitely a studio move. Go ahead, Rachel.
See, I'm gonna agree and disagree. I think the placement of the other white people, minus Jason's character, minus him. So, like in the first or the second party, where they're doing that random ass step show in the middle of the party.
Yeah,
which is one of my favorite things about the movie. There's this random white girl, like she gets several shots of camera time. I'm like, she wouldn't even be in the front.
Right? And she definitely would not. That didn't look right.
If she was at this random Black Greek party, she would not be front and center. And there were so many random camera pans of her and then the other like white band member. So that's very funny to me. That's a studio thing. I was like,
that's why they put it in here.
And it reminded me of not to jump around, but like after Insecure, Issa was talking about how at first when she first started, she was told, you have to have some main white characters in here, and that's how we got Frida and the whole We Got Y'all crew. And then finally she was able, once she established quote unquote herself, she was able to abandon that. So that's very interesting that was something that the studio said, nope, we need that. We need that.
Straight up. That's where Jason came in. They got the extra $5 million to shoot what they needed to after they did that. So, it worked out. But yeah, it's HBCU culture. I love the fact that we saw it on film. I love the fact that they brought, even though Atlanta AT&T is a fictional school, Morris Brown is not. A lot of the schools at the Battle of the Bands are not. And that's a real culture.
It's Atlanta AT&T, by the way.
You said what?
Did you say AT&T?
Did I say AT&T? I meant to say Atlanta
AT&T. I thought it was a real school back at 14.
Nah, me too.
I mean,
just like Hillman.
I thought it was real until like 3 years ago. So, and that's like not. I even have that written down. Like I came across something, and I was like, wait, because I've heard of Morris Brown before. Like I'd heard of like a few of the schools, but because there's a North Carolina A&T, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's
best homecoming in the land. That's what they're known for.
Last weekend.
So let me ask you, before we move on to the categories and get into the best scenes, let me ask you both this. When was the last time you watched, not necessarily the exact time, but has it been long enough from when you watched Drumline that you both were surprised at how much you didn't like it? Or didn't like it as much as you used to? Like, was it enough to like, dang, I thought I liked this more than this?
I felt like that, but I can't tell you the last time I sat and watched it from start to finish.
That's it. Right
I remember I had seen pieces on VH1. I even remember watching it vaguely when Drumline 2 came out, the original, but I just did not remember it being such a long watch. And being so disinterested because maybe the nostalgia attached to it. In my mind, I was geeked to do it. Like, oh yeah, Drumline.
It's
like, oh shit.
It had been a while since I saw it start to finish. And I watched it last night and I was like, that's why I texted you. I was like, man, I was like, I'm gonna sound like a real negative asshole on this podcast tomorrow.
Man, we got to keep it real. We got to
and
keep
it's
it real.
something like that. I was like, no, I like that movie. That movie's great. Like, and that's again, I can't stress enough watching it. I'm like, no, like there's some great scenes in this movie.
Transitioning well. Let's go ahead and kick it off with some best scenes. Let's kick it off, Brian.
I have to mention the unintentional comedy of them doing an R. Kelly song, of course, at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And then Nick Cannon saying to his dad at the subway station, I don't have a bunch of kids running around. And he has what, like 12 or 13 kids now?
He has I stopped keeping count, but I think he hit double digits recently.
Those were obviously two of my absolute favorite unintentional comedy pieces of this movie. But the beginning is slow. I feel like they shoehorn the subway dad thing in there to try to, get you to get a little bit more emotionally tied to him.
You can cut that out of the movie.
Yep.
Yes. Let's make this, maybe an hour 55 without that. But man, just right when he gets to school, it's like you said, Kyron, it's like a sports movie. They're getting their asses kicked. They're learning, anything. Sorry, I'm looking for a note here. I can't find it. Where'd it go? Basically, anytime, a coach puts a piece of paper on a bulletin board and everybody rushes around to see, like, I'm in. Like, that's a scene I'm totally in on. So, yeah, like, as far as, best scene, I think you got to go the last, 15 minutes? The last
performance.
The last performance. Or there's just it's just tough. I think for my money, the last performance is the best. As Dr. Lee says, "Let's get crunk." At one point. So yeah, that's where my money is. I think on the last scene, the last 15, 20 minutes, kind of cooks through there.
The BET classic, pretty much.
After Petey Pablo, yeah.
Take him out of the equation. Rachel, what you got for your best scenes?
Okay, first, North Carolina's very own Petey Pablo.
On and raise up.
And Brian, I had the very first two things you said too as like random notes. I Believe I Can Fly was everywhere in the late 90s or early 2000s whenever it came out. Like you could not go to a Black graduation and they not be playing it, singing it, doing some interpretive dance to it. Like it was literally everywhere. And then I was going to say that there's this meme on Twitter, like, this aged horribly. That scene where Nick is talking to his father. And I think he is at 12 kids. And then probably a couple of in a row. Favorite scenes. So I'm going to say the first few hazings, and we spoke on this earlier. People don't realize how much bands do and go through. I'm a part of a non-hazing organization.
Same.
I love to see hazing. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Another favorite scene is when Sean plays the drums for the drum lines the first time. Just his little one-liners to all the teams, like, oh, you know what it's like to be making love. Oh, maybe you don't, just because I love shit like that. And then when Dr. Lee comes in and gets Devin together, because again, he's the only freshman who just thought he knew every fucking thing. Like everybody else was humble. He had zero humility. Okay, like, yeah, you're a D1 recruit, but so was everybody else in here. Like Dr. Lee probably came and visited everybody's house. You're not fucking special.
I don't give a damn if Dr. Lee was in your mama's bed.
Period. And then again, when Devin helps Jason with the drum, you gotta beat it. That's a very good scene, classic. And when Sean puts Devin on blast for not being able to read music, because that's what his ass gets. That is my quote.
You know what? It's interesting that scene. So let's have a Sean conversation real quick.
Big hater, but also right.
Big hater, but also right. So that was my thing when I was looking back at the scene. So I'm gonna name some best scenes for myself, but it was first 30 35 minutes. I'm like, I haven't written anything down yet. Like I like the first 30 35 minutes, but there's nothing that made me want to say I need to make a note about this.
That first 35 minutes takes about 2.5 hours. Like I looked down at one point and I paused the movie and it was like 13 minutes in and I was like, I've been here for 6 hours. Like, so you're right. Like that first 35 minutes is like,
hey, I love the fact that you just said that because I did the same thing, except for it was like 32 minutes right around that time. I'm like, damn, I got a whole nother 90 minutes of this.
Dumb.
Shout out to Drumline. I'm not trying to dog it, but it's just like when you're an adult and you got adult shit to do, it's like, damn, like, why did they make this movie so long? I kept asking myself that. Why did they make this film so long? But Sean, he did a lot of like I couldn't even put him in my wouldn't let that happen to me though, because if you are trying to be in a part of something, especially as historic and has so much tradition as an HBCU marching band, you can't come on thinking you hot shit. No different than anything else you try to do, whether it's athletes, whether it's Greek life. Like, calm down, humble yourself. Like, they're gonna teach you that early on. Like the fact that he had on a black shirt. When they told them specifically,
yeah, I noticed that too.
A black shirt that wear Harlem. I don't want to jump to things that bother me. The fact that he was from New York bothered me a lot. Like there was nothing New York about Devin.
That was the chip on his shoulder.
There was nothing New York about Devin except for some Timbs that he wore in a couple scenes. But like I said, you'll get humbled if you need to. And Devin repeatedly just couldn't just sit back and just say, all right, cool. Like, let me play my role. This thing's going to go a lot smoother. He had to get every check that came around. He needed that. But the first game performance, that's one of my favorite scenes. Okay. The first time they get under those lights, that very small and unathletic looking football team that came through the tunnel. I don't see how they're winning any games. But the whole thing about HBCUs and those bands, halftime is game time. I just told y'all, my sister told me, after the band plays, we out. Like, there's nothing else to stay for it. So I just love that whole moment. I love the fact that, man, Devin was a punk, but he was fly on the drums. Like, I had to give him credit. He's nice. And him still in the solo, that's just bringing that little extra drama. If I was Sean, I wouldn't have went for that. But he told him to do it, and he didn't think he was. Mm-hmm. So I got to put that whole thing in there. A&T versus Morris Brown, just to see Morris Brown's band and just kind of that adversary thing. Not an incredible scene, but just kind of shows you what they're going up against. The
Bumblebees is nuts.
You said what?
Flight of the Bumblebees is nuts.
That's crazy.
Speaking of which, the other band is rocking.
Speaking of which, Brian, that was another part of those extra 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever. There was a scene after they did
Flight of the Bumblebee, deeper into it,
own like thing, and it was rocking. And Dr.
He's like, do the, I forget what he called it.
Like, yeah, and he tells them to cut it out and stuff like that. I think the scene was taken out because it would have really made Dr. Lee look like, bro, like you can't have no fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would have been a bad character look. But Flight of the Bumblebee is nuts. And Homecoming, just because the dude, like he's one of the most hated people in the black community. The dude with that started the fight, that threw the punch. Do y'all blame Devin for that fight?
No. I meant to say that. That's one of my favorite scenes too. I don't blame Devin.
Once you say that, that's probably actually my favorite scene. Is that scene because it builds up. If they do a great job of building that up,
yes.
And like, there's definitely there's real palpable tension in it. Come
on.
I mean, he might have deserved to be hit. I don't know how. Like, again, I ask myself, like, how does it get this serious? Like,
yes. That's like I don't even know what to compare that disrespect to. Like coming up and playing somebody else's drums.
But with you have to remember the powder that they had and blown. He's tapping this powder back in your face, like, oh, I'm about to slap you.
Like I don't. He was poking the bear. I don't put blame on him for the fight. but when you do certain things, you know the result might end up in a fight.
Yeah.
It might end up. I got to be prepared to take it here because if somebody beat on my drum, I'm not having it.
Right.
So the fact that I said that to ask her going into Layla, her turning away. How y'all feel about that?
First of all, her parents were entirely too old to have a daughter at that age. That was the first thing I noticed. I was like, this guy's got to be in his 60s.
Old parents.
Random shit, man. You know, it's the most random things.
The first thing I thought of was the movie The Program. With
Omar Epps.
When he I don't even remember what happens, but yeah, like same idea. Like this guy's, we'll say a thug. We'll use air quotes there. Like I can't introduce him to my parents. It's not going to be good. I mean, I get it. She's, made it a point. Like my parents are paying for my education. This, and this needs to happen. I get why she did it. Was it right? Probably not, but I get it.
Yeah, I get that part. I just don't understand her, like the hoodlum that started the fight. Like he didn't start no fight. He just, things got a little bit out of hand.
I wouldn't be introducing him to my parents any fucking way. She's like a junior. This is a fucking freshman. Because let me tell you about how my mama would be looking at me like, girl, what the fuck are you doing? What are you talking about? This is your boyfriend. This little ass 18-year-old. Girl, please. So I wouldn't have done that anyways. But then again, on the little cultural stuff with Zoe, I probably wouldn't have. I just wouldn't have been working to introduce them. And if that's the scene, obviously, where she was going to do it, I probably wouldn't. You just got done fighting. Whether you started it or not, you fucked up the shit, the performance. I'm probably not about to introduce you to my uptight bourgeoisie parents. So it is what it is.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. I can understand that. Homecoming also a big thing at HBCUs, huge thing. So the fact that her parents were back from homecoming, that adds on to that. Like I'm not at the biggest event. I'm not going to introduce you after all that. Yeah. Best quotes, Rachel. You got any?
Quotes. Spanking that ass. Mm-hmm. One band, one sound. I bet your country ass will run faster if you had one of your grandmama's buttermilk biscuits. I guess it's not White Boy Day. Again, hey,
that's what I had. Yeah.
Shout out to True Romance, where that line came from.
Halftime is game time. And what are you two, Beavis and Blackhead?
Love that saying. You love that, Brian. What you got?
I had a few of those. I of course had "Let's Get Crunk" that Dr. Lee had to say. That was just like he said that, and I was like, "Oh, that's
yeah."
My entire body like recoiled and cringed when he said that. And then "Black by Popular Demand" was my other one.
Black by Popular Demand
during the classic after P.D. Pablo.
I had Rachel. What you started out. Shout out to Nate Austin, my brother. We quote this all the time, just randomly, because the last 4 years at the BET Classic. Boys Brown been spanking that ass. I already said I don't give a damn if you sit in your mama's bed. That's just, whew. Watch how you talk to me, sir. Yeah. I guess it ain't White Boy Day, is it? Like you guys said, they don't tell you about this when they recruit you. Well, I wouldn't know, Mr. First Round draft pick. Like Devin really was out here like he was Michael Jordan in '82. You know what I mean? Just getting recruited and being a man. Life lesson: you have to learn to follow before you can lead, Mr. Miles. I love when J. Anthony Brown's character was talking to Devin at the bus stop and told him, if you want to play some real music, give me a call. And then Dr. Lee had something slick to say. So you need looking for a job next summer, you can give me a call too. A lot of folks can't read the sign that says toilet. Doesn't mean they don't know how to use one. That's always been an amusing line to me. And you can see the honey's way good up there. I just love broken country dialects. You can see the honey's way good. Love it. Goes right into my scene stealer, J. Anthony Brown. I got to give him my scene stealer. I think Orlando Brown did the best in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Orlando Jones, excuse me. Um, he did the best in this film, but J. Anthony Brown's my scene stealer. Who y'all got?
Brian.
No, I'll let you go ahead.
I was torn between Orlando Jones and Jason Weaver just because even though Jason is a main character, it's Jason Weaver.
Not a ton of screen time for Jason Weaver. Like I would have liked more screen time for him. If you gonna have a 2-hour movie, put more Jason Weaver in it.
Yeah, so he's my scene stealer because I just like the way he delivers lines. He doesn't miss for me really in anything that he does.
He's a legend.
Even straight to BET movies, like it's gonna give a good performance.
He's a legend.
I mean, for me, it's like the announcer that does all the announcing before they go on and like while they're performing, and then like the shit talking going on during the BET Classic.
I like that. I'm not mad at that.
I'm not mad at that either.
That's my favorite. Yeah, that did it for me.
Shout out to Free and AJ.
Shout out to AJ and Free. Shout out to Blue Cantrell. I hope she's doing well. R.I.P. Stuart Scott, 06 to the Good Bros. Yeah. So it was good seeing him. PD Pablo.
Yeah, I put that down. I forgot. I legitimately forgot he had that role in there, and I was like, oh man. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was cool to see him.
Yeah, man. Shout out to everybody else. But yeah, that's a good one. The announcer, I like that. I kind of do because he was everywhere. He was everywhere.
Talking shit.
Mm-hmm. Things that bother you. Who wants to start?
So many.
Rachel, why don't you pick us off?
I hated that random ass step show in the middle of the party. Like that pisses me off every trip because nobody is doing that. You might get a stroll. They will be strolling, but nobody. I feel a step coming on. No, you don't. Nobody's. You want us to stop the music for you to get up here and do all of that? No, just fucking no. And then this is maybe a personality thing. Why is Layla trying to make Devin her boyfriend like the second time y'all have had discussions? And so I had almost not said that when y'all said that it was an extended clip somewhere. But it was only 2 minutes. In my mind, I was like, oh, maybe in the deleted footage, like there's a montage of them kicking it and having all this conversation. So I'm like, what the fuck is she on? So I'm like, why is she pressed?
You think that was just an emphasis because she said like Southern girls, we don't casually date, we have boyfriends. You think that was made to say like if you want to talk to a girl from the South, you better come with your best foot forward because they're not taking no nonsense. I get what you're saying, but
I lived in the South for the last 10 years. I'm gonna tell you that's a fucking lie. So no.
Yeah.
Then I was like, why is she pressing to take him to a party? Like, I just can't imagine being a junior in the band or not worried about this freshman ass fool. Like, that is really, really bothering me. Are you crazy?
Right.
Yeah, and then it's just more ranting about this random step show. So
that show really pissed you off.
It pissed me the fuck off. And Devin's just his attitude and behavior pissed me off so bad. Like, you need your ass whooped. I'm sure the fraternity is also a non-hazing organization. But I wish maybe he, instead of Jason Weaver's character, was pledging because maybe like they could have straightened him out a bit prior to having to be embarrassed in front of the whole band.
I will say this, as far as things that bother me, like, listen, I understand that you trying to incorporate something that's real that happens, Greek life, the HBCU, but we don't need it like that. I just want to say that part. Like it was just, we just don't. I'm gonna leave it at that. We just don't need it like that.
Well, yes and no. The whole step show thing, being at a Greek party, that makes sense.
Not that part. I'm talking about the whole him being outside and them seeing him. Like, I don't know. They could have handled that.
So I have that written down. the whole crossing that night
Yeah.
situation.
And just being out and about. You was not, if you really doing that, and I don't want to take the conversation too great. If you really doing that, you're not out with your boys. I know you speed eating that burger, but that you're not even out and about like that. Like,
You're not. But here is what I wonder. You think 2002 people were still very much out. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to say this.
better be careful with your words.
And you see, I paused.
You know what I'm saying?
The particular process that they were going through, I think a lot of it, I don't know how quote unquote underground it was back then. You have to think until the mid to late 90s, a lot of stuff was still above ground.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
true.
I thought about them crossing. It reminded me of school days on the yard at night. People can see you, um, versus wherever other things may or may not have happened. Um,
Hazing was still quote unquote legal in school
it
days.
was legal in school days. Exactly. So that's what 10 years, 10, 12 years prior. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't so much bother me. It bothered me that they were hanging out and hugging him afterwards immediately.
Yeah,
Because
that
it
I
wasn't
guess
a pro show. It was
yeah,
like
that's the part that was weird. We spent enough time on that.
yeah, because you can't say what you want to say. So.
Right, exactly. And I guess even movies that are made for it, I don't like because I watched The Burning Sands as me and you discussed for the first time, and don't watch that movie. Especially if you're Greek, like it's gonna make you upset. Brian, things that bother you.
Oh, I'm still a part of this podcast. Okay, cool.
Stop fucking with me, Brian.
I mean, to everybody's point, like they've talked maybe 2 or 3 times, like, why is she letting him like take her car places? Like, that was like a huge thing I wrote down. And then later in the movie, she's like, I changed my major from philosophy to dance. It's like, you're a junior, like you're in school for another 3 years. Like, your parents are not going to be happy about that. Like, those credits are not transferring over. Like,
they're not transferring.
Good luck.
That's another something I wrote down, Brian, not to cut you off. Like, that's still another useless ass degree. Like, I don't think they're going to be
arguably more useless. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could double major in that. Why did you have to drop it? You're this far. Go ahead.
What else? How did his dad get his address at school? Did it even tell him that he was going where he was going to school?
I don't think he did.
I was gonna rewatch it, but I didn't.
Couldn't.
So there's that. The scene where they're in, like, they're doing their like battle, but it's in like the music room, and it's recording them.
When Sean and Devin reconcile, get on the same page.
Yeah, they do the drumstick point at one another.
Yeah,
it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, or you're gonna poke each other in the eyes with your drumsticks. Like, what are we doing here?
I did like the fact that they reconciled. That scene was needed.
I do. I just
was one of my.
I don't like the way they got there. I don't like the way they got there.
Yeah,
it was the suspense.
And then, this could just be ignorance. A lot of this is my issues with things that happened at the Classic.
Okay.
So that first band was just like 3 dudes rapping, not a lot of marching going on. Just a lot of like people in place playing their instruments. Second band, just a ton of air humping. That's all they were really doing. They're playing their instruments and air humping. Morris Brown, of course, Petey Pablo. They didn't really do much other than that, though. Their band was also huge compared to everybody else's.
Yep, that was a real band.
If you go back and watch it, they take up like the entire field. And the first 2 bands had like a quarter of the people. Petey Pablo seemed pretty terrible live as well, if I do say so. He didn't seem like he was too into recording that day.
That was an awful song for them to choose.
It was bad.
It sounded terrible. It sounded awful. Like I cringe almost a little bit every time. Like they could have done Petey a lot better.
And here's my thing: like you show so many training montages in this movie, not one is anything they do in any of like the drum offs. These are so intricately planned, precise movements that everybody knows what's going on, but they don't show them practicing that ever.
I'll give you that. That's no sports movie thing. That's a sports.
I get
movie.
it, but it's and then the last one is the like the freeze frame ending.
Yeah, that's very 2000s.
And like that's it.
Yeah.
Could have done without that.
Yeah, definitely, without question. Another sports movie ending. I already told y'all Devin's New York persona. I'm not buying that he's from New York. Ernest push-ups. For some reason, those were really bothering me when I watched them. His push-ups were not full push-ups. They were just not good. And it just bothered me watching it. And the president threatening to end the program, like, bro, shut up, sit down. I would felt better if he threatened to fire Dr. Lee. You're not threatening to end the program. There won't be a program next year, bro. That's like canceling football at those state. Like, you're not doing that. Like, that's your biggest draw. That's what people come for. Like, you're not canceling the program. And he said it multiple times. And just the way he, like, fawned over Devin, like those proud looks, those cutaway proud looks. I don't know. It was just a weird thing. But that's all I got for things that bother me. Any actors from The Wire? Nope. Wouldn't let that happen to me. I don't have anything down for this because understanding kind of like they had to do what they had to do to get on the Drumline. It is what it is.
I have that I wouldn't be getting kicked out of the band because I wouldn't have lied on my application.
True. Very good point.
Yeah, that's good.
Got anything, Brian?
No, I wouldn't have been such a little bitch maybe the whole time. Like I would have sat and listened to somebody. Like maybe that's it. But other than that,
he did a lot of pouting, man. Even when he was pouting about cutting his hair, all of that, man. But so trivia, I know we talked about a lot already. Just a few other things. Nick Cannon did his own drumming on screen, while his double Jason Price did majority of the close-ups and the complex ones. They filmed this movie in sequence, so like by the time they got to the classic, you see a lot more full body shots because they actually got comfortable with the drum sets. Very rigid and like long training sessions for them to learn the drums and for like the dance team and all of that. Even Orlando Jones, like him learning how to be a director, they went through training for all of that. We already talked about AT&T or A&T. I did it again. We talked about A&T being a fictional college. Kappa Kappa Psi is a real national honorary band fraternity. That's the one that Ernest joined, and their sister organization, Tau Beta Sigma, the National Band Sorority, is seen throughout the film as well. Most members of the A&T band is from Southwest DeKalb High School, so those are a lot of high school kids playing those instruments. FAMU's Marching 100 and Southern's Human Jukebox bands were invited to participate in the film for the Battle of the Bands. They declined and said, "We don't lose in real life or fiction. So if we gotta lose A&T, we're not doing it." And there was a lot of trash talk in the final scene. Like what you see in the film was like real. They said on set it got to the point where they actually forgot they were filming a movie. Like it was very competitive as far as like the drumline and the competition. A lot of drama between like people that really played the drums and were really on drum lines because they have to go against these actors and like they don't do this, like they're not taking our culture serious. So there's a lot of like real stuff. Like they had to add different sections into the routine because Morris Brown came out with a real routine. Like I don't care if this is a movie or not, we about to smoke y'all. And they had to add stuff in so it didn't look bad for A&T like that. Oh, wow. So I just love the fact that it actually got real. The director had to actually wear like a shirt to set one day with both of their logos on there, just to kind of show some solidarity because
like you think maybe it could have been like one band, one sound is what he could have said to him, right? Because the movie could be the band.
Yeah, man. Drumline. I think we've said enough, man. If you would have told me this morning that our Drumline conversation will be over an hour, I would have told you crazy. I thought this was going to be a 40-minute, 45 tops. Too high, too low, just right. Most users have this as a 5.9 out of 10. Brian, too high, too low, just right.
I'm gonna say just right. It's a little too high. It's a little too high. So I maybe a 3 or a 4. Again, as a whole movie, this just didn't do it for me, man. I don't know. Again, rewatching the whole thing, it's slow. It's way too long. The problem is I can't think of too many scenes you'd cut out.
That's the issue.
Because
that stuff is the only thing that comes to mind that just wasn't needed.
Yeah. Maybe you cut out the romance.
But you need the romance. That's college. Maybe you need a band practicing. I don't know how you make this movie shorter. That's a good point.
It needs to be shorter, but there's no way to make it shorter.
That's a very good point. That's a unique dilemma. Very sports movie, like a lot of sports movie problems. Yeah, I get it. Rachel, what you got?
Fuck. I was sitting here trying to think of what could have been cut, and I don't know.
You kind of needed all of it for the story.
I'm gonna give it a 6. For cultural relevance, I'm gonna give it a 6. It highlights things that we really hadn't seen on film, with the really probably exception of School Days. I'm gonna give it a 6. Shout out to Kim Porter, R.I.P. There we go.
Absolutely. I'm right with you. So I guess that's right at the just right 5.96. It's nostalgic. It just means it meant a lot to a certain version of myself. Yeah. Like I said, I do believe this is still a film that if you show to current 13 to 17-year-olds that they will like it and maybe resonate a little bit with it. Like it, don't love it. Thought I loved it. But I like it. Just don't love it. 6 is about right. Cultural relevance, HBCUs can never really go too wrong with that. But I'm still gonna watch it. I think I like it better than the both of you. I'm still gonna watch Drumline.
I think that's very clear. Yeah, I think if there's one thing we've learned, it's that. Like I said, it's different now. I don't have cable. I just do streaming stuff. So like, if this was like a classic TBS movie where you're flipping through the channels, like I said, like it's a classic. Like, all right, I'll buckle up for 15 minutes here and watch Nick Cannon get punched in the face with this dude, or I'll stick around till the end. But it's never like I will probably never start Drumline on my Apple TV and watch it start to finish ever again. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I don't hate it. If it was like, if I'm scrolling, I do still have cable because I am addicted to TV. If it was on VH1, I may stop for a second till it got to the commercial and then see what else is on. Maybe come back to it, maybe not. But I would stop. I would let them get their get a little Nielsen something.
Same. 6 is accurate. I probably would have thought it would have been at a 7 before going back to watch it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, 6 is right. Something feels wrong about putting it 5 something. So 6 is cool.
Yeah, but it was a hard rewatch.
Yeah, it was difficult. Like I said, I stopped and was like, "Woo, another 90 minutes. It's gonna be rough." So
it's 2 hours long. I just can't get over it. I'm sitting here still thinking about it. Like, man, this was a rough 2 hours and 2 minutes.
Yes, indeed. But shout out to Drumline though. Like, it still holds some place. You know, it still serves its purpose. So I don't want to sit here and like just completely bomb on it. Like Brian said, it's got some great scenes. There's some moments that we love about it. It's just not what we remembered it as, and maybe it shouldn't be. But As always, it is a pleasure talking film and movies with you, Ray P. Brian, same to you, man. Like every single time we have a conversation about a film or movie, you're either telling me something new to watch or giving some insight that I never thought about when it comes to certain things. So I know this won't be your last time on the pod. We'll have you back for some more episodes. Everybody out there listening, watching, we appreciate y'all. We would not be able to do any of this without you and your support. So thank you. Please remember to, like I said, share, subscribe, rate, review. Don't forget our Black Panther Wakanda ticket giveaway. School, shout out to you. We'll see you next week. Y'all be cool. Y'all be cool. Peace.
Peace out. Cut.